When video games tell stories, they always do it in collaboration with the player. At least that's how it feels in most games anyway. Some games control the narration extremely tightly, while others give wide opportunities and wide possibilities for the player to control the story themselves and create their own stories. These two narrative principles have a significant impact on the gameplay and also on our gaming experience, and that's today's topic. My name is Martin Holland, and you're watching episode 4 of Dissecting the Gameplay. Per definition, video game stories are interactive, meaning that they are narrated in a collaboration between the game itself and the player. It's like we have influence on the outcome of the story, and basically that translates into whether our main character survives and succeeds or dies trying. However, this kind of collaboration can happen in literally thousands of ways. So, in this episode, we're going to sort that out. To make it a little more down to earth, we'll start by laying out a so-called narrative range with one extreme at each end. All video games, that's the theory, will fit somewhere across this spectrum. At one end of the scale, we find all the video games which exert extreme control with the narration. Here the player has no influence on the outcome of the story whatsoever.
Haha! Taste cold steel, feeble cannon restraint rope.
The plot is strictly narrated solely by the game itself, more or less like we know it from films and TV series. Many games offer a tight list of linear quests that are communicated on screen in an extremely precise way.
How does it feel to die by the hands of your own creation?
The same games and many others provide numerous hints during each quest as if to constantly remind us where we're going and why, so as to make sure that we take the shortest route possible through the game. Still, other games of this sort make sure that key scenes and key conversations are not interactive, so we don't mess up the story and its drive.
As part of a required test protocol, our previous statement suggesting that we would not monitor this chamber was an outright fabrication.
All of these games provide a very linear and one-directed gaming experience in a game world that is usually also very linear and one-directed. A really good example of all of this is the horror game Until Dawn. A game that was promoted as the exact opposite. It was promoted as an adventure game where the player was the real narrator. It wasn't, though. Roughly speaking, the main gameplay in Until Dawn consists of the player making a choice between 2 to 4 answers. Pretty much the same gameplay that you get in one of the interactive films on Netflix. And although that sounds to some people like a real snooze fest, it's not half bad. Not in Until Dawn and plenty of other games like it, by providing a real narrative drive full of suspense and cinematic shocks. Games like Until Dawn pull you into the story ever so easily.
Come on, lady.
At the other end of the scale, we find the direct opposite narrative principle. Here, the video game has absolutely no control over the storyline, if there is a fixed storyline at all. Instead, the game invites you into an open game world which you can explore and investigate.
Hey, look! You two are making your own fun.
The ensuing gaming experience is therefore much more playful because the player gets to experiment autonomously. In a game like Minecraft, we have endless possibilities to go on self-made quests and discover the game world in our own tempo, discover our own abilities and skills and how we interact with our surroundings. And that might sound pretty boring to those of us who like a really good story, but Minecraft instead builds an incredibly strong connection between the player and the main character. We become the main character in Minecraft, so much that we even get to decide on the main character's physical journey and inner development during the game. On the other hand, there is no fixed structure in Minecraft, no real levels, no real quests. The only real narrative drive in the game is the story that you yourself create. For instance, if you walk too far away from your house and then night is falling and suddenly you're surrounded by those spontaneously auto-igniting monsters and zombies armed with bows and arrows and the disgusting super spiders, that situation naturally spawns a scene full of conflict, full of suspense, and perhaps even a shock or two. But that scene is also just momentary, and it isn't a part of a larger narrative structure.
A man has a choice. I chose the impossible.
You can find video games in both ends of this narrative range, but by far the greatest number of games can be found in between these two extremes. Mainstream games especially will position themselves somewhere in the middle, and this is where we can turn these two narrative principles into an analytical tool to learn something more about the games and the gaming experience. For example, let's look at the world's most popular video game ever, actually the most popular entertainment product ever, GTA 5. GTA 5 is one of those middling mainstream games and mixes the two narrative principles to a great extent and to a great outcome.
Franklin!
Hey, what's going down,
The market, my boy. Liquidity's a bitch. Get over here so I can give you the new repo list.
All right, dog. I'll be around when I get a chance.
First and foremost, GTA 5 has a tightly woven story which is told through a long series of quests which the three main characters have to deal with. These quests are full of conflict, they are full of opponents and car chases and shootouts and much more, so obviously they create a narrative drive forward. They grip the players and they engage the players and they coax us to continue the story.
Get back here! You're not even hidden! Come on over here, all right? I ain't gonna hit you.
I've been trying.
I know.
I thought you said you wasn't gonna hit me.
I thought you said you were gonna find fucking Michael Townley!
However, you also have nearly endless possibilities to explore Los Santos, this mega city game world that GTA 5 takes place in. You can pick and choose from the many side quests, but you can also just drive around, do a bit of shopping and go to the beach. Feel free to interact with other characters, pick up a weapon or two, buy some clothes, steal a car, etc, etc. In other words, you can really create your own narrative experience. This, of course, creates empathy with the three main characters, but it also pulls you into the game world. And at the end of the day, we get to feel like we're living in Los Santos.
So, you're just gonna leave all your stuff in the driveway?
Yeah, I'm not giving her the satisfaction of cleaning that up. I'll go to the club, get a few drinks in me, and hope either her meds have kicked in or the gin is worn off by the time I get back.
So, the interesting thing here is, how does a video game like GTA 5 unite these two narrative principles into one story? How does the strict quest-based storyline connect with the player's more free-roaming storyline? What kind of themes can you explore in the open game world? And can you actually pull the main character's personality in a different direction through the side quests, making him or her more evil by doing really awful stuff, for instance? And how does that influence on the quest-based storyline? This interplay between the two narrative principles is really interesting to examine in more detail.
All these guys in this room, they're here because they have the only thing that matters to me.
They're loyal.
That's right.
And GTA 5 is just one example of many. You'll find the same narrative range in many other huge mainstream games, the so-called AAA games. These games have cost the earth to develop, and therefore they must cater to as wide a player group as possible. So, of course you need to have two narrative methods to work together, the tightly woven game story and the free player story. Both types of narration can create a visceral and emotional gaming experience, but in completely different ways.
You won't ever need to worry about me.
Welcome to the family.
That's the final word on interactive storytelling in this episode of Dissecting the Gameplay. My name is still Martin Holland, and I'll be back in just 1 week to talk about something completely different, something diametrically opposed to interactive storytelling. The topic of episode 5 will be cutscenes. Love 'em or hate 'em. Thanks for watching.